Hey guys, I hope you're having an amazing productive week, and it's been quite busy for me for a while, so I'm not releasing the videos as often as I would like to. So recently I got a request to shoot the billboards for one of the international brands of the luggage, and of course they would like to have it in a huge amount of megapixels so they can zoom, they can print out on a big scales. And unfortunately A7S III is not able to produce the image of such a size. So that's why I was supposed to rent out the camera, and of course I would like to combine same time the shooting and the new experience for myself to check and test the new camera which just recently been released by Sony, the A7 IV. I had only 2 shootings with it, so I didn't have enough of time to test it properly. However, I managed to form my initial opinion about this new camera, and I would like to talk about it with you. I didn't write a script for this review, so I will try to be brief and exact on the point. Let's start from the build quality, as it is the first thing that actually captures your eye and whatever you feel in your hands. I didn't feel a huge difference in the build quality in between of A7 IV and A7S III. The build quality is almost the same. I wouldn't say that A7 IV feels plasticky or bad, so at this point it's really good. Ergonomics wise, it's also really good. What I really loved about A7 IV compared to my A7 III is a special switch which switches you from the photo mode to the video mode to S&Q mode. So first of all, why it is very convenient. On my A7 III, all the modes are located on the same wheel. So sometimes when you're switching from photo to video mode, you can jump to some random modes on this wheel which you don't really need. And that can cause some problems. You can lose the time while trying to switch for the proper one. Or even worse, you can switch to some mode which you don't really need and start recording. And then only later you will realize that something is wrong with the footage that you are making. Besides that, on A7S III you can pre-program up to 3 user presets for your camera. However, whenever we're talking about A7 IV, there are 3 for each of the shooting modes, so basically it's 9 user presets. Talking about the menus, comparing A7 IV to A7 III, now the menu was reworked and now it looks much more like the one on A7S III on the FX3. Talking about the memory card slots, there are only 2 that you may use, and only one is basically combined CF Express and SD memory card, and the second one is only SD memory card. I don't consider it's a big problem, and honestly speaking, I'm not actually using CF Express cards, and I consider that SD is more than enough for this camera, because even on my A7 III I'm using V60 SD card, and it does actually 95% of the job which needs to be done. If we talk about the internal upgrades, I would like to highlight 2 amazing features. First of all, now it has the processor, which is the same to A1 or A7S III. And as well, talking about the sensor size, now it's 33 megapixels comparing to 24, if I'm not mistaken, on A7 III. And that's a really great step up because it allows you higher end projects. Now talking about the video that it produces, whenever you are switching to any mode which is higher than 4K 30 FPS, it has a crop of 1.5 times. It's not just a slight crop, it's very visible crop. However, it has its own benefits if you think about it from another side. You can use a crop lens if you know that you'll be shooting 4K 50-60 FPS, and it will be cropped exactly to the point whenever you don't see any vignette or especially black borders. Also, now this camera has a 120 FPS, but it is available only in a FullHD mode. Talking about the quality of 4K footage, in fact, I think it's even a little bit sharper than A7 III, because on A7 IV, 4K footage is oversampled footage from the 7K. But please consider that sharpness is not always what you are looking for, and even A7 III sometimes is being blamed for being too sharp, even if you set the sharpness to -7, and it looks still like a digital image. That's why I even purchased the Black Promise filter, which removes this digital edge from the image. By the way, do you know what are the Promise filters and how to use them properly and what exactly they do? If you really would like to know more about them, I can make a separate video, just let me know in a comment section below. I would like to highlight one of the most important changes comparing to A7 III, and this is a new 422 10-bit codec. Before, with A7 III I wouldn't suggest using log profiles, at least not S-Log3, that's for sure, because during the post-process when you're editing, you're getting some artifacts in the sky and other gradients. Now there is no such an issue. But what remains with A7 IV similar to A7 III is a rolling shutter, and it still looks quite terrible. If you shoot the talking head like I'm talking right now, then it's fine. If you shoot maybe some basic events which are slow paced, then it's okay. But if you shoot some fast events, if you shoot sports, if you shoot cars, that can become a really big problem. So if you need something with amazing roller shutter, then it's better to go with A7S III because it's almost absent there. Also, before taking A7 IV for the job, I heard about some overheating problems. I was shooting at the hot day, it was 41 degrees if I'm not mistaken, it was quite humid. I'm living in Dubai, so you know how it works here with the weather. And yes, after shooting just for about 10 minutes of 4K 25 frames per second, I started getting this notification of the high temperature issue. But what you have to consider that on each Sony camera you can switch the temperature mode to a high temperature mode. It works quite well. I've been using my camera A7 III for 1.5 years here in Dubai, and it got overheated and switched off only once, and even though when I checked the temperature mode it appeared that after the firmware update it just switched back to a normal temperature mode instead of a high temperature mode. Now talking about the low light performance, I was actually surprised because I didn't expect that A7 IV with a 33 megapixel sensor will be doing almost as same as good as A7 III or FX3. It holds up quite well, I didn't see much of the grain even when I was raising my ISOs. However, just please consider if the low light shooting takes a big part of your job, then it's better to go with a smaller sensor like a 12 megapixel. The A7 IV has two native ISO. The first one starts at 800 and the next one kicks in at 3200. So in a case if you're going over 1500, it's better to switch immediately to 3200. This rule is applicable whenever you are shooting in a log profile. And comparing to A7 III or FX3, there are as well two native ISOs, but the first one starts at 640, which is lower than 800, so it's a little bit more versatile. And the second one kicks in at 12,800. It's really useful whenever you're shooting in a dark situation. Now talking about the dynamic range, I would like to ensure you that this camera will not disappoint you because dynamic range is very similar to A7 III or FX3. I didn't have a chance to do a proper test, so in a case if you are wondering about more details of the dynamic range, I would like to recommend you to check Gerald Dunn videos in this regards. He is a really technical nerd and he knows how to explain such things better than me. Now talking about the larger 33 megapixel sensor, it's really amazing for photos. I have nothing to say about it, but it has its own cons. And first of them is moire, which is quite intense, and I was shooting these screens for the brand that I was talking about, and I could see that moire was popping up so strong and I had to remove the moire artificially later during the post-production in the Lightroom. The second problem is because of the 33 megapixels buffer fills up really fast. And if you have to shoot some sport event, you have to click many shots one after another, and you can easily miss something important because after you click I think about maybe 10 shots in a fast pace, the buffer is already filled and you have to wait while the buffer will free a little bit, and then the next shot will happen in about 1 second, and it slows down so badly that you cannot use it anymore. Here on this footage you may see and hear how fast the buffer fills up whenever you shoot at the highest resolution JPEG plus RAW. And here is how the buffer of A7S III fills up. You can raise the compression level and then the buffer will not be filling up that fast, but obviously if you are purchasing the camera with the 33 megapixels and you are using it for photos, you would like to get the maximum quality without sacrificing anything, right? So in this case scenario, if you want to use a maximum quality, you will not be able to shoot a big series of like 20, 30, 50 shots one after another. So to sum up my experience with A7 IV after 2 days of the shooting, it's really amazing camera, I cannot say that it's bad, and in a case if you're having A7 III and you're stepping up to A7 IV, it will be a positive change for you. You will not have any cons comparing to A7 III. But when you come from some high-end camera like A7S III or from Alpha One, you will feel some real drawbacks. What you realize that A7 IV is jack of all trades and master of none. It can shoot amazing photos, it can shoot a very decent videos, but if we're talking about some high-end professional use, if you are a photographer, I would suggest to go with some other cameras which allow you a high-end production without major drawbacks for the photo. If we're talking about the video production, it's better to go with some camera that really is video capable like A7S III, and then you will not have any drawbacks in your workflow. However, if your workflow is about 50% photos, 50% videos, and you don't work on some really big and expensive projects, this camera might be for you. Down in the comment section below, let me know what you think about the A7 IV. Is it like a big step up from A7 III? Is it worth taking nowadays, so it's better to invest in some other gear and equipment to make your works better? Don't forget to leave a like under this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're still not subscribed to my channel. Have a productive week, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.